Hello, everyone. Hi, Beta.
Greetings, Luang Por.
Namaste, wherever you are. Shall we start with the Itipiso 3 times? Yo, and then we'll meditate for 20 minutes as we do, and then I'll try to offer some reflections. So please join us for the Itipiso. If you don't know it, just listen. We'll do 3 rounds of that, and then I'll give some guided meditation. All right, we have some bhikkhus and friends staying, helping with the chanting. Itipiso bhagava arahang samma sambuddho vecchacharana sampanno sugato lokavidu anuttaro purisa dhamma sarati satta deva manusanam buddho bhagavati savakato bhagavata dhammo sandetiko akaliko ehipasiko opanaiko Pacchatarvedita Bhovinyo iti supatipanno bhagavato savaka sangho ujupatipanno bhagavato savaka sangho nyaya patipanno bhagavato savaka sangho samici patipanno bhagavato savaka sangho yadidam chatari purisa yugani atta purisa puggala esa bhagavato savaka sangho ahuneyo apahuneyo adakineyo anjali karaniyo anuttarang punya ketang lokasati tipiso bhagava arahang samma sambuddho vecchacharana sampanno sugato lokavidu anuttaro purisa dhamma sarati satta deva manusanam buddho bhagavati savakato bhagavata dhammo sandetiko akaliko ehipasiko opanaiko pacchatarvedita bhovinyo iti supatipanno bhagavato savaka sangho ujupatipanno bhagavato savaka sangho nyaya patipanno bhagavato savaka sangho samici patipanno bhagavato savaka sangho yadidam chatari purisa yugani atta purisa puggala esa bhagavato savaka sangho ahuneyo ahuneyo dakineyo anjali karaniyo anuttarang punya ketang lokasati tipiso bhagava arahang samma sambuddho vecchacharana sampanno
Sugato Lokavidu Anuttaro Purisadhamma Sarati Satta Deva Manusanam Buddho Bhagavati Savakato Bhagavata Dhammo Sandetiko Akaliko Ehipasiko Opanaiko Pachatang Vedita Bhovinyo Iti Supatipano Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Ujupatipano Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Nyaya Patipano Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Sami Chipatipano Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Yadidam Chatari Purisa Yugani Yata Purisa Purgala Esa Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Pahuneyo Pahuneyo Dakineyo Anjali Karaniyo Anuttaram Punya Ketam Lokasati.
So we'll do 20 minutes of meditation. I'll give a bit of instruction and then we can sit quietly. So how do you feel? What's the mood of the mind? Physically, how do you feel physically? What's the environment? Is there a lot of sound, no sound? So you kind of awaken to the whole experience of sitting where you're sitting or lying down if you are. So that's awakening, isn't it? Simple. And to maybe emphasize or heighten that sense of awakening, you might choose one sense door. So if you listen to sound and notice the silence of listening, there is the noise or the sound, might be an air conditioner or whatever. And then there's the silence of knowing sound. And notice this doesn't involve desire to get something. And you're not really concentrating, are you? You're knowing some ordinary thing going on right now, but you're also noticing the awareness. This is so important. It's not about the sound. It's about the knowing, the awareness. And then you can change the sense door. So feel your hands. Tactile feeling of warmth or pressure. And it's the same silent knowing. So the silent knowing isn't dependent on the sense door. It's not dependent on the body or sound. It's more depends on remembering, doesn't it? Remembering this sense of presence. So then we choose the object of awareness to cultivate a continuity of this silent knowing. So if you feel the breathing of the body, doesn't really matter where you focus or don't focus on the breath. Just feel the whole breath if you want. But emphasize the silent knowing. I don't see it as an exercise in concentration. I see it more as an exercise in sustained knowing. It's a bit different for me. So, silent knowing for an in-breath. And silent knowing for one out-breath. And then you can use some inquiry to help with the silent knowing. You can say, notice the end of the out-breath. What does that feel like? So how do you sustain the silent knowing? So the end of the out-breath is very interesting. So the silent knowing is like balance on a bicycle. And you're staying balanced for one whole in-breath. Noticing the turn at the end of the out-breath. So you're not trying to achieve a different state of mind or get rid of something. And then you allow for the fact that thoughts will come and go. So let's just play around with those ideas, silent knowing, sustaining that breath by breath.
Hi, good evening, Luang Por.
How are you?
I'm good.
Good. You're gonna do the honors, please?
Yes, Luang Por. Pramajaloka Tipati Sampati Katanjalihan Iwarang Ayachata Santi Dasatha Paraja Kajatika Dese Tutama Anukam Pimam Paja.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. So good morning and good evening and good afternoon. Nice to see familiar faces, so many faces. We're well. We've hit some very cold weather here. It's -9. I just looked at my outdoor thermometer. It's -9 centigrade, which is cold. But we missed the big snowstorm that was southeast of us. I think Boston, New York, they got hit by it. So we didn't have a big snowfall, which is okay. Saved us a lot of work. We're winding down our year's work projects, and I think most of you know we have a yearly pattern that we try to observe. And so during the summer months, we do a lot of outdoor work and fixing up kutis or building this or that or road repair and so on. And then once the winter comes around, we do a long 3-month monastic retreat, January, February, March, which is, we all look forward to that. It's part of the privilege of being a monk, but also it's part of the duty of a monk is to learn how to meditate, basically, and then to take the teaching and try to deepen it through contemplation, and then carry that through those insights and those skills carried through for the rest of the year. So the rest of the year, we still do a lot of meditation. We still have morning pujas, evening pujas, and then we have our own practices in the afternoon. So there's quite a lot of time devoted to study and meditation, study of the text, study of the discipline of the suttas in different ways. And it's still very hard work. So this path is, I don't think any of us find particularly easy, but I think, like, what else are you going to do, right? Well, as long as one doesn't understand the mind or understands the nature of suffering and the end of suffering, then that's going to be the paramount question, no matter what else you're doing. So we invite usually, like, how many people do we have? About 5? We have 5 to 6 people. We invite people we know, lay people, to come and join us on the winter retreat, and they undertake to basically run the monastery. Obviously, the kitchen, take care of the food preparation, do any shopping that's necessary, because usually dana doesn't come much in the winter, right? Because it's too cold. Sometimes it does, but sometimes someone has to go and buy food. Usually we don't have to do that, but is that right? Kind of. I'm asking these guys over here. They know better than me. And then the lay people undertake to do any office work or clear the snow. That's a big one, clearing the snow. And their practice is to give the monastic community lots of space and time to develop their own bhavana, which is a great gift to us. And I think most lay people who come find that it's a great opportunity to practice dana, and also they participate a lot in the meditation. So we, like, the first month, we'll have a schedule of morning puja, and then the breakfast, and then the meal time. That morning period will be time of clearing snow or whatever, and then the afternoon we'll do 3 or 4 hours of practice, meditation, form meditation, and then evening again. So we have quite a lot. And then Ajahn Pavra will be presenting some sutta studies. So it's a very, very rich time for us. And health-wise, we're pretty good, except for one of our bhikkhus. Unfortunately, he's going to have to go and get a new ankle. Yes, I said it, a new ankle. He has to, is that correct? I don't know, you go to Costco's or where do you go? We're not quite sure where he's going to get this new ankle, but apparently there's a very good surgeon down the road in the town of Kingston, which is an hour away, and she's one of the foremost, right, in Ontario, I suppose. So he's lucky that way, but it's a frightening thing. And this is an injury that he had, 20 years old, motorbike, broke both ankles, 2 motorbike accidents, didn't have, one wasn't enough, huh? And he's very cheerful, but I anyway, pray for him, as we say. So otherwise, I think we're pretty healthy, we're pretty strong. So that's the report card from Tisarana. I was last time I think I spoke what I thought would be indicative of progress on the path, and to me it seemed it was like confidence and consistency. It seemed the two ideas I've had recently of what would really define a practice where you could see that, this is working. And the confidence would not be the confidence of knowledge, it would be the confidence of insight. For me, that's different. So someone might be very confident about the translation of Pali words, or like I remember there was a little boy who last year, I think, and he was talking about aircraft carriers. And he knew everything about aircraft carriers. I guess little boys do that. We don't do that, do we? And anyway, he knew everything about aircraft carriers and how many planes they had and how much fuel it had. And that was impressive. I didn't know all that. But of course, that's not wisdom. That's knowledge. And one can have a lot of knowledge about Buddhism, say, and yet still suffer. Whereas to me, confidence comes from insight. And insight is a very real seeing of the way things are. It's a visceral noticing. Oh yeah, this is how it works. It's kind of like the law of gravity. You don't believe in the law of gravity. If you step off the curb and you're not careful, you're going to break your ankle. Keep going back to his ankle. Don't you? You're confident about the law of gravity. That's why you're careful. As you get older, you get even more careful. So that's what insight is about, isn't it? And that confidence comes, I think, in different ways from a teacher's words, and then our own application of mindfulness and around the problems we have. From a book, it might come from a book. And that body of insight is right understanding, isn't it? And that, again, is different than intellectual, like a Buddhist position, as opposed to a Hindu position or something like that. And so study is necessary, but the point of study is to study your own heart and your own mind. And as you know, Ajahn Chah was pretty dismissive of too much study. So he said to me, just don't read for 5 years. Study your heart. I found that really difficult. And not that it's bad, reading can be good, but there's a kind of false confidence when it's just on a knowledge basis. But when you really see something about yourself, about how you get caught up with life or whatever, and you notice, oh yeah, I see how that works. That's samadhi, right understanding. And right thinking comes from that, doesn't it? You start to think in ways of your own insights. And then you apply your mind from that way of thinking. You apply mindfulness or concentration or effort from those insights. And that consistency in application of insight or understanding seems to me the strengthening of that understanding. And you can see how both of those then would just deepen and deepen and deepen your practice. The confidence would be more profound as you observe through the teachings, through your own life. And then if that insight was not just like an experience, if it was like bigger than experience, in other words, it was valid around how the mind works, then your consistency would prove that. You could be able to go to that. And that's different than having some kind of consistent samadhi experience, to me. You might have like a meditation experience, which is quite like restless, and yet restlessness is this way, and the body feels this way, and you could sit through it and develop a sense of patience around it. And then the next sitting might be very calm, or it might be very sleepy, but your confidence and your consistency would be not based on the experience, but rather an insight around all experience. It seems to me the only way it could work. Whereas if you thought that consistency was always having a, quote, good meditation, then you're in trouble. Because whatever definition you have of good meditation can, of course, go sour. So to me, it's not so much about a good meditation. It's about something deeper than that. And so what is deeper than that? Well, I was pondering Like last time I was having difficulty kind of expressing something, but like when is anger suffering and when is it not suffering? Now you might think that anger is always suffering. Then what do you do when anger arises? Is it like suffering per se, or is it something deeper? Or take the other way. When is affection suffering and when is affection not suffering? Or when is affection a problem? When is it not a problem? Or like self-doubt. When is that suffering and when is it not suffering? When is the emotional content of your life become suffering? Rather than I shouldn't be angry and I should be loving all the time. To me, that is a trap that I certainly fell into, and I think many Buddhists fall into, is the idea that metta bhavana is where it's at. Yeah, it's very important. And then its opposite is not where it's at. And hence the struggle with anger or something like that, or self-doubt. You say like these talks that we forest monks give, most of us don't prepare them and have very little idea what we're going to say. And talking with my peers, we all have doubt beforehand. Very few of us know, yeah, I'm really just going to knock them dead. I've got this really fantastic talk coming up. No, most of us haven't got a clue. We do have experience, right? And we have, we've probably suffered during the week, so got something to talk about. But it's very interesting watching their feeling of not knowing. Now, is that suffering? Or to ask the same question, when does self-doubt become suffering? That's a different question than doubt itself is wrong per se. Self-doubt is suffering per se. It's not. It's just simply an attitude and a mind state which is marginally unpleasant. I can make it very unpleasant by worrying. Okay, so there's the hint, isn't it? It's not just unpleasant. There's a whole train of thought now which is being built upon or a reaction to the feeling of self-doubt. And that's the clue, isn't it? And the clue is the thinking mind around the content of the stream of consciousness, rather than the quality of the conscious experience, I would say. So go back to something more strong, like when is anger a problem? Well, it's a problem when you're not, when you don't take responsibility for it. Okay, if I don't take responsibility for it, and I really believe that my hatred is your fault, and I hate people, and I'm a racist, and I condemn people and all of that, yeah, that's a problem. That's a huge problem, because there is no real taking of responsibility. But as I always say, the people that I meet aren't like that. We're not racist, and we are good people. We want to do good things, and we don't want to be angry, and we don't want that in our minds. And that's the problem, that anger becomes suffering. Anger is triggered by something. And so some people are placid, they don't get angry much. And some people are what we call hot-blooded, I suppose, and they might get angry a lot. And so to say that you should have a certain amount of anger or not, well, what's the amount, right? Like, is it 2 grams or 2 pounds, or is it a meter, or is it 2 centimeters? Like, how much is not right? Well, you don't know, do you? It just comes. It just, you feel annoyed by something. So it could be a whole range from a minor annoyance to, something really painful that you get very angry about. But is the uprising of that wrong per se? I would say it's not. It just is. It's just in the nature of one's conditioned mind to have these tendencies and habits and proclivities that are painful, certainly. But what seems to me, the heart of the practice is not the emotional content. To me, it seems it's the immediate response afterwards. Because as I always say, you don't plan to have self-doubt. Like I didn't think this morning I'm going to have self-doubt. No, I just had self-doubt. I didn't program my mind to feel anything. It just happened. So it's a part of nature. It's natural to feel positive or negative emotions. And if one just takes the side of confidence and clarity and compassion and all of that, you take the sides of that, and the other is going to be very, very difficult. So we're trying not to take sides, but we can do things to encourage one side. And that's different. To me, I can encourage the heart of compassion. I can encourage that. But I'm not demanding that I always feel compassion. I can encourage forgiveness. I can encourage silence by doing things. But I'm not demanding that I'm always silent or I'm always confident, because that's not nature, because it's the nature of the mind to experience all these things. So then when does anger become suffering? It's the thinking mind, isn't it? It's obvious. It's the thinking mind that starts to run with it. So in a Buddhist sense, we are responsible. You can't, like the Buddhist teachings on anatta or emptiness will not work if you don't have dana and sila. It's ridiculous, isn't it? So you have to have that before you can do this other more interesting work of looking at anger as an object, right? If you don't have teachings on morality, if you don't have a value system, which is very, very profound, then this won't work at all. So as monks say, we have a very strong set of rules and protocols and encouragements to attitudes, which are not about actually what our mind is experiencing, is how we express ourselves. So there is no offense for feeling anger. There is an offense for swearing at your brother. Can't do that, right? But there's no offense about not liking your brother. There's no one kind of reading my mind. Oh, you didn't like me, that's an offense. Or there's no offense for a lustful thought. One tradition has it, if you have a lustful thought, you've already committed sin. No, it's just a lustful thought. There's just nature. Nature has that. There's nothing right or wrong about it. It's the pursuit of it. It's the attachment to it, right? So our value system as monks is very clear about very strong recommendations about right speech and then right action. And they're the guidelines which help us to, first of all, take responsibility for some of the negative stuff that we experience. And we do experience negative stuff. And then work with that within the boundaries of a good value system. And that's very important in Buddhism. If you think it's just about being mindful and non-attachment, and you don't have a good moral value system, then you're only getting half of Buddhism. So I always feel that the people I talk to have a really good sense of sila and dana. I don't think that is a problem. So I tend to talk more about stream of consciousness. So in Buddhism, when you talk about stream of consciousness, you talk about the five khandhas, or the mind-body experience, or just the stuff of experience as you experience it internally. When you talk about dana and sila, morality and generosity, then you talk about your expression in life, how you are in the world, how you speak, how you relate, how you use your resources for the well-being of others. And as a monk, I quite often, I'm not clued in to lay life. I don't, I kind of get a sense of lay life. People talk with me and so on, but the kind of particular problems that you face are quite often best dialogue with other lay people, because you have a sense of how things you face. But all of us have a stream of consciousness which we're experiencing. And we have a stream of events, internal events, bodily events, mental events, which are coming and going, coming and going, coming and going. And none of that is right or wrong. Right? It's not wrong to have a murderous thought. But it would be wrong to follow that. And I think that's very important in a Buddhist value system, that the Buddhist value system does not put down the negative emotions. It says be careful of them. It's not put down. It's not that you're a bad person, right? They're not evil, no. But they are unskillful to follow. So I can make choices, but the choices I make have to come from awakening to the reality of the whole package, which I'm getting right now. And that to me is what Metta Bhavana is about. Metta Bhavana is not about just always having loving kindness thoughts. It's about accepting the whole package right now, how it is. And how could I possibly practice if I didn't do that? If I already had a bias that some part of my psyche is good and some part of it is bad, some part of my personality shouldn't be there, then how could I ever be free? I'd always be, judging it or trying to get rid of it. So the judgment we make is around speech, action, yeah. But then the judgment we make is we're trying to assess this as an object in awareness, known, that's arising and ceasing. And that's the teaching you always get. And it's the difficulty of doing that is that a lot of what you get is unpleasant, right? A lot of emotions and bodily things are unpleasant, but a lot of the things that come up are unacceptable to our ideal system, to what we think we should be. And then it gets really quite messy, because not only do you have some negative emotion coming up, then you also have the added problem of not awakening to it and trying to get rid of it. And that just, as we all know, that does not work. And yet it can seem like the right way to go. So do contemplate, what do we mean by Metta Bhavana? Do we mean that Metta Bhavana means that we just transmit loving thoughts to everyone all over the planet, radiate kindness, and which is a good thing, but can you do that 24/7? Right? Can you do that when you've got an impacted tooth and the dentist is hauling on your jaw? And, I love this. You'll be well and happy. No, you hate the dentist or whatever it might be. And that's natural, isn't it? This person is trying to take your jaw apart. I usually have a dental appointment in Bangkok every year. So I'm gleeful that I don't have to do that this year. So life isn't like some kind of effusive Walt Disney movie, right? It's a very difficult undertaking, and our being is composed of a personality which is conditioned from all manner of stuff that just comes into play. I don't know about you, but I find that astounding, my own personality, because I don't wake up to do Viradhammo. Viradhammo just kind of takes place in odd kind of way. Sometimes, I think, well, that was nice, but sometimes I think, well, that wasn't very nice. But what I can do for sure is, I can't always feel like some great Luang Por, whatever that is. What is a Luang Por supposed to feel like anyway? I don't know. I feel what I feel, don't I? But I can try to act and speak like a venerable grandfather, and I can try to be kind. But even if I don't feel kind, I can be aware of that and not make it a problem. So that's, I think, where Metta Bhavana comes in. It's acceptance, or upekkha. It's acceptance in a wholehearted way, not in a kind of dismissive way. And that wholehearted acceptance is a deep entry into the present moment. You'll notice when, we were talking about memory and how memory works. If I've had if someone's had a run-in with someone and you're sitting and meditating, that argument that you might have had comes up in the meditation. That's memory, right? And that memory very quickly creates a sense of self and a storyline. I'm never gonna talk with them again, or whatever it might be. And that's very, very quick. But you could see that if you have really strong sense of presence, when memory arises, you know it as memory. And when you know it as memory, that memory also has emotional content. It's not neutral. It's not just a story that you're seeing on television. It's actually a visceral experience of maybe being insulted or having insulted someone or whatever it is. It comes up both as a story, but as a bodily feeling. And that's memory. That's how memory works. Now, if you have enough presence, and you need strong presence in this practice, strong presence, say, oh, that's memory. Then you'll see how it's tripping out and creating a self, a storyline, and say, no, that's just memory. And if you can return to that memory, then the anger you feel for that person is not a problem. It's still unpleasant. It's still a memory, it's still there, but now you're seeing it as an object conditioned by past, coming into the present moment, having power, and you're bearing witness. This is just memory. This is just memory. This is memory. And so I was recommending to our one-ankled monk the other day that to actually take something like that, like memory, and make that your theme of contemplation throughout the day. It's very powerful. So you think, okay, I'll just watch memory, how that works. Now, I'm not talking about the memory of perception. And we need, obviously, I know that's a glass and I know that's a clock. And if I didn't know that, I'd have dementia. So I'm not talking about like functional memory. It's the memory that creates a sense of self. That's happening all the time, isn't it? The mind going back and forth from past to future, and seeing if you can like take that as a theme, just suggestion this week if you want, and you say, oh, I'm just going to use as my practice not some idea of emotional perfection, or that I'm not going to get angry or something like that, but rather I'm going to notice memory as an object. And if you notice memory as an object and you just get good at it, you'll see how the sense of self is created from memory. And then self-doubt or anxiety is a lot of that stuff that we have is conditioned through memory patterning. That's what happens. Oh, this is just memory. Or you have some deep sense of regret. Maybe someone died in your family and you had a horrible argument with them just before they died and you didn't have a chance to reconcile. And these are extremes. And then you feel that memory. And that's terribly painful. That's terribly painful. But if you just stay with it, and that's why you have to stay in the present moment. You just have to, and the difficult parts of our liberation are these kind of memory traces of fear or whatever. And if you can just say, no, it's just memory, it's just bodily feeling, and bear with it. The bearing with it takes time. Like if I've done something really, really unpleasant to someone and I know it, it's not subtle, and then I feel the result, and I have to bear witness to it. It's a kind of a burning. If I stay with it, then there's a kind of liberation of that history. It might come up again, but I'm no longer with that. But if I just run with a storyline, then it's endless. Memory, story, past, future, it goes on and on and on. So man's curiosity clings to past and future, but to apprehend the intersection of the timeless with time is the occupation of a saint. T.S. Eliot, I think. Anyway, present moment awareness is what we're shooting for. And why? It's not just about and not falling on the ice. Yeah, present moment awareness is good for that. Not, breaking something or hurting yourself. Yeah, being careful is good, but it's more than being careful. It's about present moment awareness is about seeing that the sense of self is something that arises in time, but that time is only a perception in awareness, and that awareness is timeless. Do you see that? Again, I don't know if I can say that again. That was that the perception of time is how the sense of self is created. If you look at it, the perception of you and your storylines are always in time, but that the perception of you as a person in time is in awareness, and that awareness is timeless. It really is. So once you see that time and the creation of a sense of self as past and future is simply an object in the present moment, you see that in the present moment, you begin to touch the timelessness of awareness and knowing and stillness. Now, that's very important in meditation, because what will happen in meditation is you'll be meditating, and then some thoughts will come up, and then you will think that I have been thinking. Now that perception is actually just a perception of time. I am someone who has been thinking. And you create a sense of self who should now stop thinking. And so then you try to stop thinking, and you're an ego in time, really. But if you can see that actually the knowing never left, you knew that you know that you were thinking about yesterday's lunch or tomorrow's shopping, or whatever you're thinking about. You actually knew that. So the perception of time as an object takes you to the timeless, the akalika dhamma, the unconditioned, the not conditioned on time. Huh? And that's something which you want to start to notice in that moment when thinking, when you notice the thinking. Notice that there's a perception of I have been thinking, and don't believe it. Otherwise you become a self that then tries to get rid of thinking, and you actually end up trying to repress thought, and then you think more. And then you try really hard, you're diligent. Oh, okay, I'm going to focus on my object of meditation, and I'm not going to think. I'm not going to think. And then what happens? Because it's a failed strategy. Because what it's doing, it's you trying to create someone who never thinks. It doesn't work that way. Thought comes and goes, and awareness knows them. So I would suggest that it's a very interesting kind of inquiry into, developing meditation. That whole point of noticing when thinking is, and the perception of time and the creation of self, is a very, very interesting inquiry. And this kind of inquiry makes meditation less of a kind of athletic feat or kind of a samadhi performance or an act of endurance, or whatever you want to call it. It's actually interesting if you introduce into it these kinds of contemplations, investigations. Otherwise, it becomes just this attempt to suppress thought, and you feel hopeless, or to have some kind of emotional content. Now, you can certainly develop emotional content. You can certainly do metta bhavana in the classical way. Yeah, do that a lot. Or develop a sense of breathing with the breath. Do that a lot. But also, don't see it as just trying to control all the time. Because that still assumes that awareness needs control, but awareness knows control. So our goal in the spiritual life is the unconditioned. And memory, thought, time, self, past, future is very important to notice as an object. And you notice that awareness is not a storyline, right? Awareness has no kind of storyline content. It just knows. It's very, very simple, but it's the complexity comes around that kind of issue of time and memory. It's a very interesting thing to investigate. Okay, Bita, I think that sort of gives lots of food for thought. Would there be any questions or other thoughts?
Thank you, Luang Por. Let's all say 3 sadhus together. Andamayam ovadakatha sadhu karang kadamase. Sadhu, 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 anumodami.
Anything on the chat?
Thank you, Luang Por. I'd like to now welcome questions on the floor. If you have a question, please click on the digital raise hand button, which is a blue palm on the participant screen, so that we could unmute you. This is the last session that Luang Por is presenting for this season for 2020. So this is really a very good opportunity for interactions with Luang Por and to clarify what he said so far. for this whole year. All right.
There you go.
Our first participant, Shumei. Shumei, could you please unmute yourself, Shumei?
Okay, thank you, Peter. Luang Por, how do we know that this self-doubt is not a lack of faith, a lack of confidence in our own practice?
Well, okay, so doubt is natural. There's nothing wrong with doubt. And doubt, if you couldn't doubt, then you couldn't solve problems. So there's functional doubt, right? So you can certainly, I could have a doubt about maybe like, what's the third noble truth really mean? And I could go to the text and I could look at that. But a lot of our self-identity and ease that we get is being intellectually confident. Because when we feel confident about something, it's a good feeling, right? When we're not confident about something, it's a lack in us. And it's a good lack because maybe we need to do something about it. But having done everything you can about things, that sense of maybe I don't know is going to come up anyway. And the whole trick of it is to know it as an object rather than be the subject. So when self-doubt arises, it creates thoughts of, I don't know, what is it like? And I used to, the way I used to deal with that is I used to go to the books, so I'd have some self-doubt and in the beginning that was okay as a young monk because I needed to get the terminology down and I needed to like the structures of Four Noble Truths, dependent and origination. So that was a good form of study. But after a while, I saw that every time I wasn't sure, then I would seek confidence in an answer, and it didn't put an end to the cycle. And then I saw, well, the question that I raised actually was creating a problem that I thought I could solve with thought, but then I'd have another question. So it was a habit. It was a habit of doubting. And then I started, especially like giving talks. It was a very good way to learn about that. So then I would, I'd say, okay, I have no idea what I'm going to say. Now that was very uncomfortable for me because you're going to be in front of people and they're expecting something, right? Not a gibbering doubter. And so it was a very threatening kind of feeling, this doubt. But then I said, well, what does doubt feel like before I think about it? In the same way, you might say, what does anxiety feel like before I think about it? Or what does anger feel like before I think? So what is it? It is a mood, right? And it's different than a mood of confidence. So it's a mood when you take sides, you like the confidence, you don't like the doubt. It's a mood which creates the desire for confidence. Fair enough. But the trouble is, it's always a part of our human nature. I don't know. The future's unknown. Like with COVID and all that, there's a lot which is unknown. So doing the best we can on a functional basis, we can also then start to explore the very feeling of self-doubt. So the language you could use is rather than, do I really know? Do I not know? Am I on the path? Am I confident? Am I consistent? The consistency would come, what does doubt feel like? That's the consistency. And then when you went to it, you say, oh, doubt feels like this, then the confidence that awareness knows. So the consistency would be the application of the question. But now the question isn't trying to get rid of the doubt. The question is, what's this moment really like? What does doubt feel like? And then you're in the ballgame. You're in the present moment. You're not abstracting into thought. You're with the very feeling of doubt. And then it's no longer a threat. Or if it needs to be used, you use it. Like, you smell some smoke in the kitchen. Oh, there's a doubt. Yeah, you go and you put the fire out, right? Or whatever. So it's not saying doubt is right or wrong. It's just, when does it become a hindrance? And in the teachings on samadhi, it's one of the hindrances to meditation, yes. But also it's one of the nivaranas. and in the fetters, sorry. And in the fetter system, it says you no longer have any doubt in the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. Well, that can kind of sound like you never have doubts, but then that doesn't seem very human to me. But I would say you have no doubt. The doubt itself is anicca, dukkha, anatta. You know it as an object. You're not the subject of it. You see it arise. It stays for a while and ceases. And where it's difficult is craving. And this is where you use the Four Noble Truths. Craving wants confidence. Because confidence feels good. And not knowing doesn't feel good. So if you then say, okay, what does doubt feel like? Then you apply the Four Noble Truths. What do I want that I have? What do I don't want that I have? And what am I trying to get rid of? Or what else do I want here? What's the wanting like? And then you feel, oh, I don't want doubt. Oh, that's what wanting feels like. But doubt feels this way. And you start to unravel the craving around doubt. You start to let go of the wanting. And then doubt can come and go, but it's no problem. And I think this is very important for most of us because we are, we're really intellectually trained. We're trained to analyze, to solve problems. And so our intellect is highly honed to critique things and to solve problems. And because it's a strong habit to deal with life that way, it's very easy every time a doubt comes up then to start thinking to find a solution. But there's a kind of dead end there because then you never get beyond intellect. You never get beyond thought. Whereas if you just know that you don't know, that's interesting. So you'll know, like in the Chinese tradition, the What To is it? Is that what it's called? Or the Who Am I? Who is thinking? And these are very common kind of practices you find in Sino-Buddhism. Like in the Zen tradition or in the Chinese tradition. Again, raising a question, but not to get an answer, but to make the mind bright. So when I say to myself, well, what does doubt feel like? Feeling doesn't have an answer. It just feels like this. But that brings me into the brightness of awareness. And then I have to trust in that. So that's where the confidence and the consistency comes. That I'm confident that knowing doubt, I'm on the path. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to solve the problem. And that consistency bears out as you do it. That confidence bears out as you do it and gives you more consistency. Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you so much, Luang Por.
Okay.
Thank you. I'd like to now invite Nancy. Nancy, to please unmute yourself.
Hello. Greetings from Ottawa, not far away, and it's cold here. So my question, I think, was answered by your last answer, but I'm going ahead anyway with it because my question is about the sustained knowing and having the experience of the sustained knowing that you mentioned in the early instructions, that there may be a different experience, perhaps one of knowing becoming lighter and lightness and kind of dissolving into energy of nothingness, or it could be the sustained knowing becoming vaster and fuller and wider, and then transmitting this sense of everything. So when there's this experience coming and you're moving into this sustained known, but then there's the unknown, like what experience could this happen? Or the mind shifts into the doubt that you just mentioned, like, I don't know what's happening to this experience of the sustained known. So then there's that lack of confidence that you just mentioned, but being aware of that all is opening you up to just being beyond the present, in the timeless, in awakening, which you just mentioned. So I guess I'm just asking the question because you said, well, it's good to ask. I don't know. I have no expectations for an answer.
Nancy, what happens with this path of letting go into that is that you get altered states of perception and consciousness. And these are confusing because you're not used to them.
Mhm.
And then because you're not used to them, the doubting mind tries to figure them out, but it's obviously not an area you can figure. This is not where thought can do anything, right? So what happens is you usually go through many iterations of that, of sort of the perception that you are a limited body in limited space, that begins to fall away, but the resultant experience becomes deeply silent or whatever, and then it's the unknown, and that's where the language of trust and awareness, or even wow, this is crazy, anything you want to say, but that you're allowing something to take place that is none of your business, right? Because it's bigger than your sense of your business. So, and what happens is you go through many iterations of that usually, because the thinking mind and the groundedness in a kind of bodily experience or social identity, all that is so very, very strong that this other is sometimes people enter into that for long periods of time and then not see it again. There's many variants on that, but be encouraged that whatever you're doing is letting go of the limited sense of self, right? Letting go of the limited sense of self in time, and all of that is right. Have confidence in that, and then when your mind starts to be too concerned about the experience, remember it's about the awareness. Just remember that it's about the awareness, not the experience. But they are profoundly interesting. All of that's profoundly interesting, but the interest becomes fascination, becomes thought, becomes doubt very, very easily. Yeah. So any the way I operate, any minor doubt in my experience is also the same as a major doubt in a larger experience. So even just not being sure of what's going to happen next year is still a doubt, and you get to know that. It's not as profound as maybe what you've just experienced, but it's still doubt. It's still not being sure. And then you get better and better. Oh, this is a feeling of not being sure, right? And then if you do that a lot around, do you have enough eggs in the fridge or whatever? Or, are you going to travel, or can you see your kids or grandkids or whatever? You say, oh, that's what doubt feels like. That's what doubt feels like. That's what doubt feels like. And you get really good at that, so that when it comes in this more major kind of possibility, oh, I know you. You're doubt. I saw you last week in the kitchen. That kind of thing. Because now you've got a kind of a familiarity with something, a mood of the mind, and you know how not to go there, not how to. But also sometimes these kinds of possibilities bring up tremendous fear. People are like really kind of terror will come up. There's many ways this might manifest, but you obviously kind of get it. So just keep whatever suggestions you're making to yourself, keep with those. And then in ordinary life, just watch doubt as an object, and then you get really good at it. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay, Nancy.
Thank you, Luang Por. I'd like to now invite our friend from New York, Sis. Sis from New York.
Hi there.
Hi there.
Nice to see you, Luang Por.
Nice to see you. Well, I'm looking for you.
Yeah.
Where are you? We're searching.
Hi there.
Okay, go for it. There you go.
Yes. Yeah. So my question is, so a couple of things that I deal with in my meditation practice and in my life is, so first of all, some physical issues. So some kind of like chronic pain and stuff like that. which definitely like impacts my ability to meditate and creates discomfort while meditating. And then in addition to that, also I deal with a lot of anxiety. So I'm like, my mind is often racing, and I'm just dealing with anxiety just kind of throughout the day. And so I find that like when I sit down to meditate, it's a very common experience for me to have this kind of experience like shutting down. So I'll like it often comes in the form of kind of sloth and torpor or sleepiness. So I find like I'm kind of trying to bring my attention into the body, but there's just so much, it's kind of like there's a feeling of overwhelm, and also there's just like this feeling of some fear around the kind of health issues that I have. And so it's kind of difficult for me to have this sense of just like, oh, I'm sitting here just kind of relaxing at ease. And so because of that, I find that I tend to kind of just shut down and to kind of go into this state of just drowsiness and sleepiness. And I was wondering if you have any suggestions for working with that.
Well, what comes to mind is when are you most aware of these configurations? When are you most objective? Like when you're shopping or when you're playing music? I see you have a guitar. Or like, is there part of your life where you are more conscious of this than when you're meditating?
It's a good question. Yeah, maybe if I'm going for a walk or something.
Then do that. What you want to do is make conscious this material in ways that you can and that feel safe and that aren't overwhelming. So it might be just better to go for a walk. What about, like, have you ever used music to get in touch with those feelings?
I think that I do use music to get in touch with difficult feelings, but I guess it's not quite in the same way of being mindful. Do you have any suggestions for how to kind of like?
Well, any of this difficult material which we have, if you're conscious of it, that's a good thing. Because if you're conscious of it, you're seeing it as an object. And the problem is being overwhelmed as the subject. So if you give up the ideas of meditation being kind of sitting quietly, and you see more contemplation as the awakening to material which tends to be overwhelming, what areas in your life could you cultivate to do that? So, the playing of music or going for a walk, and then you say, well, that is my meditation, and I'm going to allow this stuff to come up, because it does come up in those kind of situations, and then the more familiar you become with it, the more the possibility arises that when you do sit or meditate, doing walking meditation, then you're more conversant with it, or you're more willing to be with it, or whatever. Usually, like in the monastery, strong historical stuff that we all have, monks usually work it off in walking meditation, because it's a much more like strong emotions, be it fear or anger, have tremendous amount of energy in them, and just sitting sometimes is very, very difficult. So we'll have a 25-foot walking path outside our meditation huts, and we'll walk back and forth. And I certainly did that with like rage in my early years, and I had a lot of anger. I just walked back fiercely and just got it out. With fear, I also did that, anxiety and fear, I just walked back, because it was a lot of energy. So consider posture. But if you're in New York, maybe you haven't got a 25-foot walking path.
New York State. So I have some.
Where are you?
Yeah. Ithaca, New York. Small.
Ithaca, you're not so far.
Yeah.
Well, but you get the principle. The principle is to make conscious things like that in a way that you can see them as objects, and the fact that you can, you recognize it and you're honest about it, means that you are, you're working on it, and each time you can see it as an object, it starts to lose its power, even though it's very, very powerful. So that's the main thing. Like if you're going for a walk and you become conscious of it, so, oh yeah, so what's the body feel like with that now? And if you did that for half an hour, that's going to help your meditation. Or if you do it with the music, and like I've never used music for those kinds of inquiries, but why not? It's to become conscious of it. And then with the drowsiness in meditation, then usually we just recommend doing like standing or walking meditation. But if it is something that's closing you down, then it's a more kind of considered thing you have to do. So try that. Just try standing meditation, like doing qigong or something like that. Some kind of tai chi qigong type practice, or walking meditation. I know Ajahn Chah one year, there was a lot of flooding in the monastery, and the monks couldn't use their walking paths. So he said, well, just do 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. Doesn't really matter. But you're changing the posture. And then allow, because you have to allow the inquiry to take place without forcing anything. And because you want to understand this, I would say if you start to feel drowsy, just stand up and try, get your feet like a shoulder width apart, put your hands in the hara and just try that. What does that feel like? It just as an inquiry into posture or walking. But my most important point would be, where do you know that this is happening the most? Where can you get most mindfulness going on it? And that's the area you want to somehow explore more.
Thank you. That's really helpful.
Okay, Seth? All right. Come and visit
Thanks
us.
so much. Yes, I'd love to.
When the borders open.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Are there any further questions from the floor? No more questions. Oh, one more from Relay.
Okay.
Hello,
please.
Luang Por.
Hello.
Thank you for your talk.
Yes.
My question is a little bit about the consciousness and nama rupa. So a little bit about dependent origination. And so if Ajahn Kameko is there, I think he mentioned something about doing a retreat on dependent origination. So I'm waiting for that.
He's not here, but I'll tell him.
Okay. So basically, I'm kind of like putting all the learnings together, and I'm kind of in the corporate world, and in the office, we do a lot of root cause analysis. So I take dependent origination as in like root cause analysis and going really deep into the root of the causation, which is dependent origination. And so when Luang Por talk about non-self, and I think I heard Luang Por Suchito yesterday talk about consciousness and namarupa and consciousness, which is dependent on each other. So I was thinking that when we go into non-self, is it really about the consciousness going to the root of the namarupa, and therefore, understanding that rupa is the 4 elements and the, nama is the 5, elements of the 5 factors. And so just really not making a formation of that namarupa. Is that non-self? Yeah.
I don't think that way. The way I take it is I take it what is not dependently originated. That's my question to me. Is like the mind-body experience is dependently originated. So I consciousness, ear consciousness, the day's events, my emotions, the body, my social situations, they're all dependently originated. They depend. So my question is, what is not dependently originated? So sankhara is the word we use. What is sankata? What is asankata, right? And so that's, to me, a very direct question, rather than a largely analytical question with all those other factors. So I simplify. To me, those other factors are just pointing to where not to look. Don't look for the unconditioned in the conditioned. Don't look for the non-dependently originated in those things which are dependently originated. So once I get that, I know I don't have to worry about the five khandhas. I don't have to worry about nama rupa. What I have to be concerned about, what is not dependently originated? And that's a very powerful question, because then I'm noticing, well, okay, the heat in the room, my voice, memories, these are all dependently originated. And that just takes me back to one thing, and that's the silent knowing. And I can't get behind that. And I can't say that it's dependently originated. I can't, that doesn't work, because it doesn't depend. It's not something that has an origin and an end. I can say that about my body and about my social experience. I can say that about this meeting, but I can't say that about this simple knowing. And so that silences my mind, right? And so all those other, like the rest of the teachings to me is simply, don't go there. That's not the place, basically. It's so, so that's why I, to be honest, I forget a lot of these lists. Because for me, a lot of the lists are pointing where not to go to. Once I figured that out, I thought, well, okay, I don't have to remember that. That's a relief. But then giving these talks, it gets difficult. Because I was supposed to know something. But actually, that seems very direct to me. And what is not dependently originated? The first monk I met, Venerable Bodhisattva, he said to me, what do you think the word that the Buddha used the most was? I thought, anicca, anatta. He said, no, it depends. And so then he said, all of that depends. But what is not dependently originated? So that, that whole 12 formulated thing and all that, that's very useful. But for me, there's a much more direct statement for me, is what is asankata? Huh? Now, if you ask yourself that question, any answer you get is conditioned, right? It's formulated, and that all thought is formulated. It depends. So your answer depends because you're a Buddhist. So you might get a Buddhist answer, five khandhas, nama rupa, and so on. But that depends. So it can't be an answer. If you're giving yourself an answer, that can't be the answer, because it's dependently originated. You see what I mean? I'm not being facetious, right? I'm being serious. So then you're left with silence. You've got no place to move now. You just don't know. And then you have to abide in that silence and wait, but wait for nothing. Huh? And so you have a powerful analytical mind, and certainly you want to make use of that. But I would say, be careful not to try to figure this out, because anything you figure out is still dependently originated. Any conclusion, which isn't to say that the conclusion of silence, I mean, that's a conclusion. You could say that, but it's not a structure in that sense. It is what it is. It's silent knowing. And then I would say, then you trust in that, and rather than in the doubting mind, in the thinking mind. And to trust in that for an intellectual is very hard, because you say, oh, it's got to be more than this. It can't be that easy. And you start to think. But actually, it's very, very difficult to do that, because we're not used to waiting. We're used to doing and solving problems and so on and so forth. So not to dismiss your question, but that's just the way I operate. That's what I find. I mean, I went I went through all that, obviously, as a young monk and all that, but I thought, well, yeah, but that's just saying where I shouldn't go. But where should I go? What is the solution? And to me, it seemed that what is not conditioned, unconditioned, not dependent. Okay?
Sadhu, 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 Luang Por. Sadhu for sharing the perspective and going into the Nirodha instead. So sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Okay. But I won't be doing a Paticca retreat. To be honest, Luang Por Sumedho taught that for a whole year. And it was brilliant. It was really, really brilliant. But now you notice he doesn't teach that. Now it's like he's just like hammering away at consciousness, right? So why? Why doesn't he formulate those lists? Well, partially because he knows them. He understands them, and he's got that whole, so do most of us. So we don't have intellectual doubts anymore. We understand why there is dependent origination, why there are the three characteristics, why tanha is important, we understand all those bits and pieces. So that's very helpful to give you intellectual confidence in the teaching. But then at some point, you want to go beyond intellectual confidence. So you have to do that work, I agree. Otherwise you're going to come up to Buddhist concepts and Theravada Buddhism and say, oh, what do they mean by that? So that's a good exercise. What is that? But there's some things that like, I get like, some things I just get confused by. And I say, well, am I being stupid, or is this just too analytical for me? And sometimes it is, for me at least. It gets so analytical that I just walk away feeling more confused than I was like 10 minutes ago. And I said, is that because I'm stupid? Maybe. That's a possibility. Or maybe we're making it too complicated. That's also a possibility. And sometimes it depends on your personality. Some people need complexity. Like some people, you say, the store's down there. You point and they go, right? Some people say, the store's down there. What do you mean down there? Is it to the right down there or to the left down there? Well, it's sort of to the right. And but then, and then like 50 meters, is it to the right down there? Or, they need a lot of explanation, which is just a personality type. So some people really like a lot of analysis and lay it all out like that. And obviously I prefer, this sort of very direct way of looking. So not to dismiss analysis, but I would caution against the idea that more knowledge is more insight. Not necessarily. More knowledge can be more confusion. So that's a trap you get, to think that more the more you study, the more you know, the more ideas you have. That can be a trap. And yet you want to understand Theravada Buddhism. You want to understand where all those sit. So, okay.
Thank you, Luang Por.
Okay.
Thank you, Luang Por. Do you have more time for 2 more questions, Luang Por?
I do.
Okay, wonderful. Right, I'd like to invite Susan next. Susan, to unmute you, I need you to please start your video so that Luang Por could see who he's addressing the response to. Okay, Susan, please.
Hello.
Hello,
Luang
Susan.
Por. Bhante, I have a question. It was a story I heard that was said by Chandra Kitri. He talked about this serpent in taking up residence in the wall of the house. In order to alleviate his fear, the man searched the house for an elephant. And to satisfy himself that there is none, then he rests easy. I didn't understand the relation to this story to no self.
I don't either.
Okay.
I have no clue.
I heard this teaching and was told this story about the man who's afraid of the poisonous snake that's taken up residency in one of the walls of the house. So to remove his fear, alleviate his fear, this man searches the house for an elephant. And when he doesn't
Sounds
find an
like
elephant,
dementia to
then
me.
it doesn't make. I don't know what to make of this, and I thought
Me
maybe
neither.
okay.
You know what you know is you know that you don't know.
Yeah, so I'm happy with I don't know. I'll let this
So
pass
there's
then.
doubt. But
Yeah.
sorry, yeah, I don't know that story.
It's okay. All right, next
Sounds like a
person.
great
Thank
story.
you. Yeah.
One more.
Right, the last one, Luang Por. Jesslyn Yo.
Jesslyn, hello. There you go.
Good evening, Luang Por. It's morning over here. I'm from Malaysia.
Okay.
I have read Ajahn Chah's book, No Reflection, for many years. One of the things that I read from there is, like what Luang Por had said earlier, there's only one book worth reading, which is the heart, which I have been doing. Always reading the heart. But Luang Por, my question today is about insight. I read a lot about no impermanence, and I kept thinking about it. And one day while I was driving and going up a ramp and coming down, and then the sky just opened up. I think a storm was coming, and the clouds were changing so fast that suddenly I just saw impermanence. Yeah, and after that, there is no little voice that has any question about impermanence anymore. So I just want to know, is that an insight? But that insight is not during meditation.
Oh, insights can come in all kinds of lovely packages. So I think the fact that it changed you, right? It profoundly changed you is insight. As opposed to, me noticing that the weather's changing. That's not insight. That's just, but the fact that something hit you strongly, you see, the insight comes from your previous work. You've been reading, you've been contemplating, you've been, hearing Dhamma. So you've built up a whole set of perceptions now which prepare you for insight, which might come in any way. It's not about, sometimes people think you're just going to hammer away at samadhi, right? And you're just going to get so concentrated that bang, your head will blow open and you'll have insight. But I don't think it works that way. It's more like you prepare the ground by reading, studying, looking at your mind, struggling and suffering and so on. You prepare, and then all of a sudden you're kind of ripe. Oh, and the fruit falls. Oh, I see. You get it, but you get it at a deep way. And the sign that you get it at a deep way is that it changed you. So trust in that. Trust in the fact that this is, and the change should be that your tendency to attach to things lessens a lot because you see them as objects which are changing. That's what it should be doing. You have more and more freedom in the silence of knowing change. But it's a mysterious process. If it was a kind of linear process, we'd all be going to the linear process and we'd be enlightened by now. Right? I mean, how many retreats have all of us done? And it's not linear. It's not like you lay it out, okay, you do one, you do step. That's why those teachings which do step 1, step 2, step 3, they're very enticing in the beginning, aren't they? You try them, you fail. And then you see, actually, insight's kind of messy. Then you lose the plot every now and then and so on. And then you see, insight is different. It's not like an accumulation of something. It's like, oh yeah, I get it. And that begins to deepen your relationship to the khandhas, your relationship to the stream of consciousness. So, trust in that. It's something to be applauded. But it came from your previous work. All your reading and your study and your listening, it came from that. All right? Okay.
Thank you, Luang Por. May Luang
But
Por
keep
be
your eye on the road too. Okay, so maybe, in closing, may I wish you all a COVID-free New Year. Let's hope this vaccine works for us and that we can maybe meet in a more face-to-face way. But whatever comes in the year, we certainly wish you prosperity, a good health, joy, good family relationships, good digestion, everything one could hope for. But deeply, may the travails and problems and difficulties that come this year be the food for your own insight, because that's what makes life meaningful. Just having happiness all the time is a pretty naive kind of thing. But having that mind, which is, okay, this year, my challenge is to understand myself. That's a good adhitthana, isn't it? That's a good determination, rather than losing weight or whatever people do for New Year. You think like whatever comes up, may it be something that enlightens me, rather than, oh gosh, here it goes again. So that you take on this year with a kind of inquiry, a Dharma inquiry. So it's a kind of inspiring year. I will be, I think a group in Delhi have asked me to give a talk. It's around midnight Indian time. So that will be on our website if you want to participate in that. And also, I think we're doing a kind of Christmas retreat with the folk from Singapore, Malaysia, right? And that's also on our website. So do check that out. But anyway, from all of us, ho, 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 happy Christmas. And may we also, because we have some voices here, may we chant our blessings in our traditional way to wish you a really beautiful New Year.
And Luang Por, just want to say that many of us who have come to this Dhamma Zoom room have benefited so much from your compassion and your dedication to the teaching. These have been good sources for us to overcome the difficulties of this year. And many of them have found refuge and solace in this space that you created so beautifully. And we'll also like to express the anumodana and our well wishes to Luang Por and to all the teachers and the Bhantes and the lay followers at Tisarana who supported this endeavor. May we also wish you good health, prosperity in the Dhamma, and that you all continue to remain strong, and that we can put our forehead to the ground where you walk and you sit soon one day in a very physical presence, Luang Por.
Thank you, Pita. And I think all of us really thank you for organizing this. It's been really good of you to do this every Friday, or every Saturday morning. So anumotana for all your goodness. Thank you.
And
So
may we please ask for us to chant together the Buddha's words on loving kindness, so that we can, as lay followers and lay community, dedicate these merits that we've accrued to you, our teacher, as well as to all the good Arya Sanghas out there in the community. May they be blessed with the blessings of the goodness.
should we do the English version? This is what should be done?
Yes, please, Luang Por.
Okay. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties, and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm, and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove, wishing in gladness and in safety. May all beings be at ease.
whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another, or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another, even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, free from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding, by not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being free from all sense desires, is not born again into this world.
All right then.
Before you go, Luang Por, please allow all of us here to pay our respects 3 times to you.
Please
May I
do.
please invite everyone to join me in Araham, please. Araham Sama Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Avivademi Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho Sanghang Namami.
Okay, stay warm.
Keep well, Luang Por. See you back in February and have a good winter retreat.
Thank you. Okay, bye-bye.